Good morning, everyone, and happy Tuesday. I'm here, hopefully what will be briefly, to talk about animal deities. And deities are symbols of religion that people worship or leave out offerings to, that kind of thing. One of the magazines that I read has them broken down by part of the globe. So we'll start with Egypt because it's a very easy one. Most people who know anything about Egypt in that area can picture at least one. The Sphinx does not count in this case. The simplest one for those that know is Anubis, which is the head of a jackal or a dog, which is the long snout and the pointed ears. And he is the god of mummification and the dead. So he's the one that weighs the dead people's hearts to see if they're worthy to enter the realm of the dead. So the very bad people will have hearts that weigh different from good-natured people, and the good people get to go in and everybody else doesn't. Typically, Anubis is seen as a jackal because they hung around graveyards a lot. And the Egyptians are really big on mummification and the dead, so it just makes logical sense. Not to mention that a lot of the scents they use for embalming their mummies are very attractive to canine noses, so it's not surprising. Although in Egypt cats were worshipped a lot more than dogs, they still have dog-related. I believe these are all dogs, actually. Magazine was about dogs. The second is Wepawet, which is the war and funerary god, meaning of funerals. Typically seen the body of a man and the head of a jackal, wolf, or dog, so all kind of similar, long snouts, pointy ears. She is the opener of roads and accompanies the dead to the underworld. So when they do their walk, she's there, and this is quite common because canines are often seen as scouts when going hunting or something like that, so it makes sense that they accompany them on a journey. The third is Set. It's a non-specific animal head, but typically seen in the same animal family, so fox, jackal, sometimes an aardvark or a donkey. I don't think I've ever seen her like that, but typically they all look similar. Set watches over storms, deserts, the dark, chaos, and foreigners. She has a little bigger job description, but the legend is that Set killed her brother Osiris, who is also a god. And I don't remember what Osiris does, but I do remember learning about him because I took Greek and Roman history, and then we covered a little bit of Egypt when I did that. Moving on to Greece, which, again, a lot of people know a little bit about, but just in case. Kerberos is the three-headed hound that watches over the entrance of the realm of the dead. Make sure that no ghosts escape. If you can't picture what that looks like, think of Fluffy from Harry Potter in the first movie, because that's kind of the same idea. It's symbolically, because the dog is guarding the realm towards where all the danger is. So, interesting foreshadowing if you know a little bit about symbolism that way. The second is Hecate, the goddess of crossroads, entryway, and dogs. Sometimes she has 3 heads. They can be a cow, horse, serpent, or dog. Dogs bark and howl around her, so you can always tell when she's near. And dogs guarded Greek homes, so it makes a lot of sense that one of their goddesses of dogs is the goddess of crossways and entryways. In Japan, there's one called Kitsune, and I know one of my friends told me about her because this fox has 9 tails. And we played Pokemon together as kids, so we're surprised that they got some of these from Legends. There's also a 3-headed dog. But the legend is that if the fox lived long enough to get 9 tails, then it would become a kitsune, and they like to eat rice stuffed tofu, apparently. Really close with the god of rice. And they seduce men. In Japan, fox is one of the astrological signs, so it is... They do have a very high opinion of foxes. They're seen as lucky. Moving on to Central America. And I know I'm going to say this one wrong. It starts with an X. Xolotl. I've heard of it before, but I don't remember how to say it. This god brought humanity and fire from the underworld, so they're credited with a lot of things. They're typically seen as a skeleton, monster, or man with a dog's head. So you see dogs are quite common, especially just as the head, because that's seen as where the brain and the function and everything happens. So it's easier to identify them that way because the traits and things they're responsible for are related to dogs. They guard the sun at night in the underworld and make sure nothing happens to it, and bring the spirits with them down. So actually the Mexican hairless is named after this god, the breed of dog, because they thought it was important at the time when they found the first one, and they decided that if there's a god of dogs, then they named this breed after it, and it makes a lot of sense. In North America, most of the animal symbolism is in the First Nations culture. The eldest groups of Native Americans still practice animism, which is the belief that every natural object has a soul. In their culture, animals have supernatural powers, and they imbue the person with the trait of the animal. So if they have a spirit guide that is, say, a bear, then they are imbued with the characteristics of a bear. If in First Nations, the dog spirit encompasses every dog that has ever existed and act as a guide throughout their life. So getting a dog guide as your spirit is a big deal because it's every single dog that's ever existed. It's also present in a lot of religions. For example, in Christianity, there's a patron saint of dogs. In Hindu religions, there's a dog worship day festival in Nepal called Kukar Tahar, and dogs are seen as a very positive influence if you run into them. In Islam, Muhammad said, there is a reward for serving animals. So those who treat animals very well are seen as good people. And in Judaism, they have to feed the dog before they feed themselves. And if they don't have the resources to feed that animal, they're not allowed to get one. Which, that part I respect, because we should have that here, where a lot of people get dogs without the responsibility of knowing everything that goes with it, just because that dog's cute and they want it. But that is all of the animal deities. If you have any questions, feel free to message me. I am flying out of the country tomorrow, so I will be offline for a little while, but I'll be back by next Tuesday for our next live video that may or may not be about my trip. Depends on how tired I am, but I hope we have a fabulous rest of your week, and I will see you next week.